Imagine a frightening scenario. All bees disappear within 30 days. What would happen? We'd lose the supply of numerous fruits and vegetables. Agriculture would collapse. How severely would our lives be affected? Without bees, approximately 1/3 of our food supply would be immediately impacted. Crops like almonds, which are 100% dependent on bee pollination, would disappear completely. Others like apples, blueberries, and cherries would see yields drop by 90% or more. If bees disappeared suddenly, the first changes would happen at the grocery store. Within weeks, you'd notice certain fruits becoming scarce, particularly berries, tree fruits, and melons that have short shelf lives and depend heavily on pollinators. Their prices would rise dramatically as remaining inventories dwindled. Within months, the impacts would cascade throughout the food system. Crops like almonds, which rely entirely on honeybee pollination, would simply disappear from shelves. Prices for crops with reduced yields would continue climbing, making them luxury items accessible only to the wealthy. Products containing these ingredients, from breakfast cereals with fruit to coffee with almond flavoring, would either reformulate or increase in price. The economic ripple effects would be devastating. California's almond industry alone, worth $5.2 billion annually, would collapse overnight, taking with it thousands of jobs in farming, processing, and distribution. Similar scenarios would play out across dozens of crops and hundreds of dependent industries. In the longer term, our entire agricultural system would be forced to shift toward wind-pollinated crops like wheat, corn, and rice. While these could provide basic calories, the nutritional diversity of our diet would dramatically decrease. The most vitamin and mineral-rich foods in our diet, colorful fruits and vegetables, are predominantly pollinator-dependent. Experts at the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, of the United Nations have modeled this scenario and reached a sobering conclusion. A complete loss of pollinators would reduce global fruit supplies by 23%, vegetables by 16%, and nuts and seeds by 22%. In developed countries with diverse diets, this translates to significant nutritional deficiencies in vitamins A, C, and E, plus key minerals and antioxidants. Perhaps most concerning is that many crucial medications and supplements are derived from pollinator-dependent plants. From heart medications to cancer treatments, our pharmacopoeia would face significant challenges in sourcing key compounds. Dr. Alexandra Maria Klein, Chair of Nature Conservation and Landscape Ecology at the University of Freiburg, summarizes the situation. We've created an agricultural system utterly dependent on a single species, the European honeybee, for pollinating hundreds of crops. This represents perhaps the most precarious agricultural monoculture in human history. To obtain quality honey, the harvesting process plays a crucial role. Centrifuge technology helps gently separate honey from the honeycomb, preserving its flavor and precious nutrients. This process begins with carefully uncapping the honeycomb cells using specialized tools, after which the frames are placed in the centrifuge that spins the honey out without damaging the wax structures. This allows beekeepers to return the empty frames to the hive, where bees can reuse them, making the entire process sustainable and efficient. The honey harvesting process actually begins long before any extraction equipment comes into play. Experienced beekeepers monitor nectar flows and hive conditions throughout the season, waiting for the precise moment when honey reaches optimal maturity. The bees themselves indicate this moment by capping completed honey cells with a thin layer of wax, their way of saying, "This honey is finished." When at least 80% of the cells in a honey frame are capped, the beekeeper knows it's ready for harvest. At this point, the honey has been transformed from raw nectar, which could contain up to 70% water, into mature honey with moisture content below 18%. This natural dehydration process, combined with enzymatic changes the bees introduce, creates shelf-stable honey that won't ferment or spoil. The extraction begins with the removal of these honey-laden frames from the hive. Many commercial operations use a gentle blast of air or specialized brushes to clear bees from the frames before removing them. The filled frames then go to a processing facility, which might be an elaborate commercial operation or simply a clean room in a beekeeper's home, depending on the operation scale. The uncapping process is both art and science. The beekeeper must remove just enough of the wax cap to expose the honey while preserving the underlying hexagonal cell structure. Traditional uncapping knives are heated to slice cleanly through the wax, though commercial operations often use automated uncapping machines that process hundreds of frames per hour. Once uncapped, frames enter the extractor, essentially a centrifuge that uses centrifugal force to draw honey out of the cells without damaging the valuable wax comb. Beginning slowly to prevent breaking the delicate comb and gradually increasing in speed, these machines efficiently remove honey while preserving the frames for reuse. This innovation alone revolutionized beekeeping economics. Prior to extractors, combs were crushed to remove honey, and bees had to rebuild them completely. After extraction, raw honey flows through a series of increasingly fine filters to remove wax particles, bee parts, and other debris, while retaining the pollen, enzymes, and beneficial compounds that give honey its unique properties. Unlike many commercial operations that ultra-filter and heat honey, destroying many beneficial compounds in the process, artisanal beekeepers typically use minimal filtration and low-temperature processing to preserve honey's natural characteristics. A creative solution that improves economic efficiency for beekeepers is the mobile honey extraction system. This model helps them maximize different flower seasons, increase production, and improve income. Mobile extraction units can follow the bloom across different regions, allowing beekeepers to produce specialized honey varieties from specific floral sources. This practice, known as migratory beekeeping, helps both the honey industry and the farmers who need pollination services for their crops. These mobile operations represent a fascinating intersection of ancient practice and modern innovation. The basic concept, moving bees to follow blooming patterns, dates back to ancient Egypt, where beekeepers floated hives on barges down the Nile to follow sequential flowering. Today's mobile operations use modern transportation and extraction technology to achieve the same goal on a much larger scale. A typical mobile extraction unit is housed in a modified truck trailer or shipping container, containing all the equipment needed for commercial-scale honey processing: uncappers, extractors, filters, pumps, and storage tanks. These units can be rapidly deployed to wherever the honey flow is strongest, eliminating the need to transport heavy, fragile frames of honey over long distances. For small-scale beekeepers, these mobile units offer access to commercial-grade extraction equipment they couldn't afford individually. In many regions, cooperative models have emerged where a mobile unit serves dozens or even hundreds of beekeepers in an area, operating like a traveling honey processing facility. One innovative beekeeper in the Pacific Northwest has developed a solar-powered mobile extraction unit that can operate completely off-grid. We can set up in remote mountain meadows with specialty wildflower blooms and process right there, as he explained. This gives us unique honey varieties you simply can't get any other way, and our carbon footprint is minimal. The economic advantages are substantial. By processing immediately after harvest, these operations minimize honey crystallization issues and maximize extraction efficiency. The reduction in transportation costs, moving only the final product rather than heavy frames, improves margins significantly. And the ability to quickly pivot between different floral sources allows for specialty varieties that command premium prices. For farmers, these mobile operations provide crucial pollination services, following crop flowering from south to north as the seasons progress. The same operation might pollinate California almonds in February, Washington apples in April, and North Dakota sunflowers in July, maximizing both honey production and pollination efficiency. To ensure consumers receive the highest quality honey products, strict packaging, certification, and preservation processes are implemented, from selection to when the product reaches consumers. Quality honey undergoes rigorous testing for purity, moisture content, and the absence of antibiotics or pesticides. The best honey producers maintain strict standards that often exceed regulatory requirements, ensuring consumers receive a product that's not only delicious, but also safe and beneficial. The journey from hive to shelf involves multiple quality control checkpoints. First, moisture content is measured using refractometers. Honey with moisture above 18% risks fermentation and must either be further dehydrated or used for applications where fermentation isn't problematic, like mead production. Next, honey undergoes organoleptic testing, evaluation of color, aroma, flavor, and texture. Expert tasters can identify not just the primary floral sources, but also detect any off flavors that might indicate problems like overheating or contamination. Many producers use the IFFIN scale to precisely measure honey color, which can range from water white to nearly black depending on floral source. For premium products, pollen analysis, pollinology, identifies and quantifies pollen grains present in the honey. This can authenticate single-source varieties like Manuka, Acacia, or Orange Blossom honey, ensuring consumers get exactly what they're paying for. This becomes particularly important for medicinal honeys like Manuka, where therapeutic properties are linked to specific floral origins. Laboratory testing represents another critical step in quality assurance. Modern techniques can detect adulteration with sugar syrups, the presence of antibiotics or pesticide residues, and indicators of improper processing like elevated hydroxymethyl furfuryl HMF levels, which signal heat damage. Packaging itself serves both protective and informational purposes. High-quality honey is typically packaged in glass rather than plastic to prevent chemical leaching and moisture transfer. UV filtering glass helps preserve sensitive compounds that break down in sunlight, and detailed labeling provides transparency about floral source, geographic origin, and harvesting practices. The finest honey producers often implement traceability systems that allow consumers to track their specific jar back to individual apiaries or even specific hives. QR codes linking to harvest information, geographic details, and even seasonal conditions give consumers unprecedented transparency. Raw honey stored properly can last indefinitely. Archaeologists have found 3,000-year-old honey in Egyptian tombs that remains perfectly edible. This exceptional shelf stability, however, depends on proper handling throughout the supply chain, maintaining appropriate temperature and humidity levels from extraction through retail display. A sad truth is that today's market is flooded with fake, low-quality honey. In fact, counterfeit honey might be more common than you think. Be a smart consumer and choose products with clear, reputable origins. Tests have shown that up to 76% of honey sold in some markets may be adulterated with syrups or diluted with water. Real honey has distinctive properties. It crystallizes naturally over time, has a complex flavor profile that lingers on your tongue, and when drizzled forms a distinct pattern rather than dissolving immediately. Food fraud experts consider honey one of the most commonly adulterated food products globally. The most prevalent form of fraud involves diluting real honey with cheaper sugar syrups derived from rice, corn, or sugar beets. These syrups are often processed specifically to mimic honey's chemical signature, making detection challenging even with standard testing methods. More sophisticated adulteration involves honey laundering, where honey from prohibited sources, often containing illegal antibiotics or pesticides, is transshipped through multiple countries to obscure its origins. The 2013 Honeygate investigation revealed massive honey laundering operations, routing Chinese honey through countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, and India to evade import duties and food safety inspections. Ultra-filtration represents another deceptive practice, removing all pollen from honey to prevent geographical source identification. While marketers claim this improves clarity and appearance, the removal of pollen eliminates the primary marker scientists use to verify honey authenticity and origin. The economic incentives for honey fraud are substantial. Pure honey costs approximately $3.5 per pound to produce, while rice syrup costs less than $1 per pound. With global honey prices reaching $10 to $20 per pound for premium varieties, the profit margins on adulterated products can be enormous. Consumers can protect themselves by learning to recognize quality honey. Real honey has several distinctive characteristics: texture and viscosity. Authentic honey has high viscosity, forming a continuous stream when poured and folding back on itself like a ribbon. Crystallization. Most real honey crystallizes over time, though some varieties like acacia crystallize very slowly. This natural process doesn't indicate spoilage. Label transparency. Quality producers specify exact floral sources and geographic origins, rather than vague terms like pure honey or natural honey. The water test. Real honey sinks and remains intact in a glass of water, while adulterated honey tends to dissolve. Price considerations. Honey priced significantly below market averages often indicates adulteration. Producing real honey simply costs more. Perhaps the most reliable approach is building relationships with local beekeepers, who can provide direct information about their production methods and processing standards. Farmers markets, local food co-ops, and community-supported agriculture programs often provide access to these transparent producers. When you enjoy a spoonful of sweet honey or a crisp apple, remember that behind it is the hard work and diligence of tiny bees. If they disappear, we don't just lose a food type, but an important part of life itself. Each bee may visit up to 5,000 flowers in a single day, and it takes approximately 2 million flower visits to produce a single pound of honey. This remarkable efficiency and dedication have made bees symbols of industry and cooperation throughout human history. The relationship between humans and bees represents one of our oldest partnerships with another species. Cave paintings from 8,000 BCE show humans collecting honey from wild bee colonies, and by 2400 BCE, ancient Egyptians had developed sophisticated beekeeping practices. This long association has embedded bees in our culture, language, and mythology, from being symbols of royalty in ancient Egypt to representing diligence and community in countless cultural traditions. What makes this relationship special is its mutualistic nature. Unlike many domesticated animals that have become dependent on humans for survival, honeybees maintain their wild abilities while benefiting from human protection. And unlike many agricultural practices that extract from the environment, beekeeping at its best actually enhances biodiversity and ecosystem health. The economics of this relationship are equally fascinating. A single worker bee produces just 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey in her entire lifetime. A quantity so small it seems almost insignificant. Yet collectively, these tiny contributions create an abundance that supports both the colony and human consumption. This principle extends beyond honey to pollination itself. Each pollination event, a bee visiting a flower, is momentary and seemingly minor. Yet the cumulative effect of billions of these interactions sustains our agricultural systems and natural ecosystems. There's something profoundly hopeful in the idea that such small actions, multiplied across many individuals, can transform the world. As we face mounting environmental challenges, the bee offers a powerful model for sustainable partnership. The beekeeper who works with natural systems rather than against them who takes only surplus while ensuring the colony's needs are met first, represents an alternative approach to our relationship with the natural world, one based on stewardship rather than simple extraction. Were you surprised by these facts about bees? Share this video with your friends and family if you've ever eaten honey without knowing about their tremendous contribution. Together, let's raise awareness and protect bees, safeguarding our own future. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss other interesting videos.